أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد, so we continue with the journey to the Hereafter series, and alhamdulillah there isn't much left. We might have to go a bit slower because alhamdulillah my voice, I'll be trying to do the lessons a little bit shorter. From today we said we're going to speak about some of the particular actions which the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in them that these people receive high levels in paradise. We're speaking about al-ghuraf, the high places and buildings in the paradise. From amongst them is the shaheed, the one who dies as a martyr for the sake of Allah. The shuhada are different types. There's shaheed al-ma'raka and shaheed al-akhirah or shaheed al-thawab. Shaheed al-ma'raka is the shaheed, the martyr that dies in battle. The big rewards are for the one who dies in the battle. Jayyid, and he's got special rulings related to his death. For example, if he dies, you don't wash him, you don't put a kafir on him, you bury him as he is, the place that he is, in the clothes that he's in. And also he gets the reward in the hereafter. The shaheed of the akhirah is a person who, for example, dies because of a disease or an illness in his stomach, or the war that falls on him, or he dies drowning, etc. This person, he's not considered a shaheed in this dunya, meaning we wash him, we pray on him, etc. Only the reward for him is in the hereafter, which is a great reward, as long as he was sincere for the sake of Allah and he was patient. Someone, for example, who a building collapsed on them, and at that time they weren't patient, they swore, they questioned Allah, etc. Why did this happen to me? This person is removed from the reward of the shahada. Person needs to be patient. Why do they get that level of shahada? Because of what they went through was very tough. What they went through was very hard. That illness, that war falling, burning, drowning, etc. These things are very hard to be patient upon. So the fact that he was patient gives him that great reward in the hereafter. And from that rule, some of the ulama said, any death a person goes through where there was a lot of hardship and they were patient, they get the reward of shuhada in the hereafter. But just so we can differentiate between the two, because sometimes people ask, if he died drowning or he died, a building fell on him, do we give him the rulings of a shaheed in this dunya? No. The rulings of shaheed in this dunya only for the one who dies on the battlefield. Shaheed. As for the hereafter, then they get reward of the shaheed. The one who dies on the battlefield, also I've been asked this question, do you consider, or can you consider the one who dies fighting for his country as a shaheed? In Arabic sometimes they like to say things like shaheed al-watan, for example, or the Christian Palestinian reporter that died maybe a year ago in Jerusalem, people calling her shaheeda. Shahada, firstly, is only for the Muslims. That's number one. Number two, the ma'raka that you're in has to be li'a'la kalimatillah. It has to be to make the word of Allah victorious. If it's about my country versus your country, this is not Islamic. This is part of the wars of Jahiliyyah, the wars of ignorance. Now, if it's my family versus your family, etc., this person is not shaheed. Shaheed in this sense. If someone comes and attacks your country and you're defending, just like if he attacks your house and you're defending, yes, a person in that situation, for the sake of Allah, could be considered shaheed, yes. But someone in the army, he went to his neighboring country because they hate each other, is he shaheed? No. It's only kalimatillah. If it was for the sake of Allah, to make the word of Allah strong, yes. To make the word of Allah victorious, yes. To implement Islam and Sharia, yes. But for what we have today, unfortunately not.
شيخ محمد اللي يموت في سبيل الزعيم مثلا او شيء
يحشر معه ان شاء الله. طيب. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, يؤتى بالرجل يوم القيامة من أهل الجنة فيقول له يا ابن آدم كيف وجدت منزلك؟ فيقول أي ربي خير منزل. فيقول سل وتمن. فيقول يا رب ما أسأل ولا أتمنى إلا أن تردني إلى الدنيا فأقتل في سبيلك 10 مرات لما يرى من فضل الشهادة. The Prophet ﷺ said, a man will come on the day of judgment, he will be brought on the day of judgment, and he will be asked, how did you see your place in paradise? He's talking about those high levels. How did you see your place in paradise? And he will say, Ya Allah, it is from the best of positions, the best of places. And it will be said to him, ask and wish. Ask for what you want and wish for what you desire. He says, Ya Allah, I do not wish for anything, nor do I want anything, except that I'm returned back to the dunya so that I can be killed again for your sake 10 times. Why? Prophet said, because of what he sees from the bounties of Allah Azza wa Jal. This person who died and seen the virtues of Shahada, he is the only person that dies and wants to come back to this dunya and die again for the sake of Allah. Shahada is not something simple, but its reward is great. Shahada is not something simple, but it's something great. This is Shaheed al-Ma'rakah. Shaheed al-Ma'rakah, the one who gets the big rewards, this is Shaheed al-Ma'rakah. And the evidence here is, فَأُقْتَلْ, I'm killed again for your sake. Jayyid, in battle. This person, he will never be allowed to come back to the dunya because Allah has written, once a person dies, khalas, he's not going to come back to life. Even Isa alayhi salam, when Allah Azza wa Jalla raised him to the heavens, he didn't raise him after death. He raised him when he was alive. And he will come back down to earth and he will die a natural death once he's returned back to earth. Once a person dies, khalas, they don't come back alive. And that's also very important for the ones who said, I was in an ambulance and I died for an hour and then God gave me a second chance. You didn't die. Jayyid, there was a period where you went away, there was a coma, your body shut down, whatever you want to say, but the soul is not removed from the body. Once the soul is removed from the body in the sense of death, it's khalas. A person who never been returned to this dunya. Tayyib. The shahada, the virtue that he says, the way you take from this hadith is, his place in paradise, his position in paradise. What are some of the other rewards and virtues of the shaheed? I know the first one that you're going to say.
More hura'in.
A lot of hura'in. 72 men, and this is one of them. He can intercede for 70 family members on the day of judgment. What else? Fadail al-shaheed, thawab al-shaheed. On the day of judgment, he's safe on the day of judgment.
شو بتمنى
لا ما شو بيتمنى ثواب الشهيد ماذا يحصل عليه من فضائل وثواب
تمنى
رؤية الله عز وجل
يرى منزله في الجنة وهو يموت. What else? 3 more. And he's given a crown of honor on the day of judgment. Taj al-Waqar. On the day of judgment he's given a crown of honor. These are some of the things that are for the shaheed that dies in the ma'rakah. Shaheed, these are some of the things that are for the shaheed that dies in the ma'rakah. There's a lot of reward for the shaheed. And unfortunately, because of our reality in our situation, it's rare that we talk about jihad or shahada. But this is not from the traits of the mu'min. Rather, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, بمعنى الحديث بمعنى الحديث من لم يغزل في سبيل الله ولم يحدث نفسه بالجهاد فهو على شعبة من النفاق. بمعنى الحديث بمعنى الحديث. The meaning of the hadith, whoever does not fight for the sake of Allah, nor does he even tell himself about fighting for the sake of Allah. It's not something that he desires, that he fights for the sake of Allah. Then this person is on a branch from the branches of hypocrisy. He's on a branch from the branches of hypocrisy. Why? Because you as a believer, naturally, you should want to do everything that you can that's good. When you hear of something that pleases Allah, or something that has great reward, you yourself, you say, Wallah, I wish I could do that. For example, Qiyam al-Layl. When you hear about the reward of Qiyam al-Layl, you say, Wallah, I wish I could do that. Or you hear about the reward of the Hafiz of Quran. You say, "Wallah, I wish I could do that." Or you hear about the reward of being a alim. You say, "Wallah, I wish I could be that." Same thing when you hear about the reward of jihad and the virtues of jihad and the state of the person that dies in jihad. You should say to yourself, "I wish I could be that person." But if a person says, "جزاك الله خيرا," بس إنه أنا قاعد مع مرتي, sit with my wife, it's nicer, watch مسلسلات, watch TV shows, this is nicer, it shows that there's something wrong with that person's iman. Not that he's a munafiq, but it's a branch from the branches of nifaq. Meaning, there's a problem there. So a person, when he hears about jihad, and he hears about dying for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, this is something, even if he says, "Okay, I can't do it right now," but if the opportunity was there, this is something that would give me great pleasure. Jayyid. May Allah Azza wa Jal assist us all to do good deeds. Some of the non-Muslims, they like to attack Islam through points like this. They say, "You Muslims, you are, for example, a violent religion." For example, you talk about fighting, and you talk about jihad, and you talk about dying for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. What's a very easy way to respond back to them? Besides, lakum dinukum waliya din. What's a very easy way to respond back to them?
If we're talking, you're doing it.
I like it with the accent, sounds like that. If we say it, I'll fix it up a bit. You guys say the same thing? Now, there's a big recruitment drive for people to join the army again. Okay? Massive recruitment drive for people to join the army. Forget America. Forget that spends more on its army than some countries, the whole economy. Okay? In Australia, there's a big recruitment drive for people to join the army. Why are you encouraging people to join the army? And for what reason? So they can make toys for the kids. Well, for what reason? So that you have a strong army. What do you promote? You promote patriotism. So join the army for you to be a patriotic member of society and to do something for your country, to give back to your country. You don't have to get a war, but just in case. But you're encouraging it. Okay? You're encouraging it. They say, you guys talk about things like, if you die, you get this reward and you get women in paradise. What's a simple response back to them? And what do you guys promote? If someone dies in battle here and is very brave, what does he get? He gets like a little medal. Okay? He gets like a little medal. And he's dead, and he can't even wear it. And you are encouraging people, and their families see it as a big thing, like a big honoring, that my family member died in battle, and he is given this status and this status and this status, and given this reward and this medal, even though he doesn't benefit at all from it. His family still seek pride in it. At least what Allah has given the believers is something that he can benefit not only 1 or 2 days, for the rest of eternity. And this is the things that people like. Jayyid, this is from what the men like. So Allah is going to give you as a man that which you enjoy. And is Allah going to give you, for example, in Jannah, going to give you something, what's Allah going to give you? A plate, here's a plate. What did you benefit? Here's a medal. What did you benefit from it? It's not something that your heart desires. What does your heart desire? From the things that men like, naturally, is women. And so Allah Azza wa Jal makes that part of the road in the paradise. These are things that we should, as Muslims, never be shy from. Never ever be shy from. They talk about things like, you guys have jihad as part of what you teach and in your religion. Every single year, the whole of Australia stops for what? Anzac Day. The whole of Australia stops for Anzac Day. What's the motto of Anzac Day? Lest we forget. In the school curriculums, we're taught about the wars that Australia participated in the world wars, etc., and what they done and how we were bombed by Japan and the like. And you taught a teacher for what reason? Why do you teach these things? It's to keep that love and respect of their sacrifices in the hearts of the people, and for the people to be motivated by what they've done and appreciate what they've done. And if the need was to ever arise, for the people to do it again. This is not something limited to Islam. This is something that every single person on the face of the earth does. Even sometimes Christians try and criticize the Muslims for this. They say our religion is a religion of peace, and your religion is a religion of violence. Don't get one aspect of the religion which every nation needs to have and say this is the whole religion. Our religion has everything in it. It's got times of peace and rulings for peace and dealings with peace. It's also got that with war. Why? Because we are a complete religion. If you look at the Christian and say, is the same God of the Old Testament the same God of the New Testament? Say yes. So okay, the God of the Old Testament, when you hear stories of Moses going to war, when you hear stories of David, Goliath, when you hear stories of Solomon, these warriors that fought in battles, these people, what do you say about them? You know, that they were violent and they were bad. And that's the part of the religion that you believe in. That's part of the book that you believe in. And even with the New Testament itself, don't think that there's no such thing as harshness in the New Testament. Of course, the modern picture a lot of Christians like to give off is, and you turn the other cheek. And you only throw the stone if you're sinless. These are nice cherry-picked verses. But there's also things about killing, and from Jesus alayhi salam himself in the Bible. Jesus alayhi salam himself said, bring those who don't believe and slaughter them in front of me. In the New Bible, I'm paraphrasing, and those who like can go back and look at the exact references with the exact wording. And Isa alayhi salam, Jesus alayhi salam, we're talking about what they said from the New Testament. See how he speaks about to the Jews. He says to the Jews, and your father is the devil, and you are people not from God, and you are people from the devil. And these are not nice words to say, and there's very, very, very harsh words. But again, the unfortunate reality is a lot of the people from those religions themselves, they don't learn their own religion, and so they come and they attack Islam on certain points that are mentioned in their religion. But the fact that jihad is part of Islam, this is from the holistic, perfect nature of Islam. From the holistic, perfect nature of Islam. We say yes, of course, jihad is part of Islam. Islam did not leave anything for the people to try and have to figure out themselves. That's how people go astray. That's how people get lost in their path of life. With Islam, everything is mentioned. How to go to the toilet is mentioned. How to be with your wife is mentioned. What to eat is mentioned. What to wear is mentioned. How to pray is mentioned. How to do business is mentioned. How to sleep is mentioned. Everything is mentioned with Allah, including jihad. And when you read the rules of jihad, they are the most merciful and best of rules. When you read the rules in Islam of jihad, they are the most merciful and the best of rules. The most just and upright of rules. When you read the rules of what men wrote today, it's all a bunch of lies. It's all a bunch of lies. Australia itself is not necessarily a strong country militarily, but it's a big ally of America. And it follows them wherever America goes, they follow like a dog and its puppy. What happens when America does something wrong? For example, the word collateral damage. Very nice term, sah? Very, 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 very nice term. Collateral damage. What does that mean, collateral damage? We wanted to kill one person, but we ended up killing 15. We're sorry about the 14 that died. It's collateral damage. That was just part of the process. We couldn't help it. Or for example, you are not allowed to, when you fight a war, Jahid, you fight a war. The person that you're fighting has rules, like in the Geneva Conventions, human rights, etc. They have rules. If you're fighting another army, you can't do X, Y, Z, or you have to treat the prisoners with X, Y, Z. How does America get around that? By breaking those rules.
لما فاتوا على العراق.
Yeah, بس كيف؟ ما المبرر؟ What do they use to justify getting around those rules? Of not treating them humanely.
Terrorists.
That they're not an army. The people that we're fighting are not an army. These are rules for one army fighting another army. The ones that we're fighting, they're not armies. What are they called? Insurgents. For example, they're insurgents. Combatants. Whatever you want to call it. Any name except the name of an army. Why? Because if they're wearing an army uniform and they're considered an army, there's rules that they have to abide by. There's rules that they have to be strict by. How do they get around it? The fact that they don't wear an army uniform. They talk about human rights. All we hear is human rights and human rights, human rights and human rights. Where's Guantanamo Bay? Why is it not on American soil? Because they're not signed on to these treaties. So it's like saying everyone has to be on board with human rights. And we're going to force everyone to human rights. But when we don't want to do it, we're just going to pick this place in the world that hasn't signed on to it and do things that are illegal everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world, they're illegal. You know, when they talk about China and what they do to the Uyghur Muslims, this is extremely bad. They talk about torture and how can you do that, and then. But you guys do it. You guys do the exact same thing. And it's documented. China doesn't come out and say, yani, we're the peacekeepers of the world and we're the policemen of the world and we promote human rights in the world. China says we do what we want. So you can say what you want about China 100% and they're wrong and they're oppressors and then. But at least they're not hypocrites. Whereas what America does is complete hypocrisy. And Australia goes along with it. You know, these things are extremely sad, but we as Muslims need to understand, we need to know what is right, what is wrong. We need to understand the reality of the world, how things are played out, so that we don't get fooled ourselves. Allah, there's so much to talk about when it comes to this topic. You know, the promotion of jihad in Islam, how they talk about it. You know, from a young age, almost every young person from a young age, they want to be one of three things. Almost everyone goes through that phase. Either you want to be in the army, or you want to be a police officer, or you want to be in some sort of secret service. Almost every person in the world has had that thought. Where does that thought come from? From all of the media that we see, the movies, the TV shows, etc. If you study it a little bit in the background, they say this is purposeful. This is purposely done. This is purposely done. This is done for people to be inundated with this information, for it to be done in a light and in a manner which makes the people love it. It glorifies it, so people go and sign up for it. And when you listen and watch some documentaries that talk about this in detail, wallah, you'll be amazed. And you'll be shocked and amazed how much programming they do. And so we sit there and watch this army about the war, and this movie, watch this movie about army, this movie about war, this movie about the TV cop, this movie about being a detective, this movie about being secret service. But like, you know what, I want to do that. So what do? They go and sign up. And they benefit. And then you look at, for example, America, the amount of people that go there and they say, it wasn't what we expected. And it wasn't as nice as we thought it was going to be. And if they didn't die overseas, they come back with severe physical injuries. And if they don't have severe physical injuries, they come back with severe mental illness. And when they come back, look at the suicide rates of the people that come back from wars. I'm talking about American studies, it's everywhere, just go on Google. The suicide rates. And then look at how America looks after them. And he got them to that stage where you want to go, then after they go, come back, and we're going to look after you. These things are fada'ih, but we should be smart as Muslims to know about it. So if anyone ever tries to attack in our religion in these matters, you know how to deal with them. Many of the Muslim prisoners of war, the ones that we took as prisoners of war, many of them, they became Muslims. They became Muslims because they seen what Islam had. Also, the Prophet ﷺ, he said regarding from the people that have these high places in paradise, أنا زعيم لمن آمن بي وأسلم وهاجر ببيت في ربض الجنة وبيت في وسط الجنة وبيت في أعلى غرف الجنة. I am a guarantor for the one who believes in me and submits to Islam and migrates for the sake of Allah. He's a guarantor for a house in the pastures, the outside, the outskirts of paradise, and a house in the middle of the paradise, and a house in the higher parts of paradise. The matter of hijrah is something, again, not spoken about much. There's two extremes. Jayyid, hijrah is originally migration from Mecca to Medina. When Mecca was still under the influence of the kuffar, and it was very hard to implement your religion, and the Muslims opened up Al-Medina, and the Muslims migrated there. It was an obligation for people to migrate to Al-Medina if they were able. And migration was very hard. It wasn't simple. You're leaving everything behind, and you're going to a place that's foreign to you. You don't know people in it. The temperature was very different. The climate, they used to call it Hummatul Medina, the fever of Al-Medina. And it was very hard because the climate was very different. It wasn't easy. So the ones that done hijrah, they had a great reward. After the Muslims started to spread and Mecca was reopened, it wasn't an obligation anymore to leave Mecca to Al-Medina. But Al-Hijrah stays until the Day of Judgment. Hijrah is of two types. Number one, for you to leave the haram to go to the halal. This is one type of hijrah. Then you got the physical hijrah, to leave the land of kufr to the land of Islam. What's the land of Islam? You're going to find a lot of definitions when it comes to Dar al-Islam. To summarize and give you a very practical answer, without getting into the difference of opinion, a place where Islam is stronger. Take it as a rule. You're not going to find a definition in any book of fiqh. You're not going to find a definition. But a place where Islam is stronger, because if you say a place that has Sharia, almost impossible to find. If you find a place that the majority of them are Muslims, you can find that. Jayyid, this is a practical answer. Now, this is why we summarize it by saying a place where the Muslims are and Islam is stronger. Jayyid, whether it's a Muslim country or an area that Muslims have a state in it, etc., then for a person to migrate there. When it comes to migration here, people are in two extremes. One, migrate at all costs. If you live, for example, in Australia, land of kufr, migrate at all costs. Other people, other extreme, there's no need to migrate at all. You and your family do your best wherever you are. And don't even worry about hijrah. These are two extremes. Firstly, is there an obligation to the hijrah or not? If you're able to implement your religion, no matter where you are, if you're able to implement your religion, then Allahu Alam, the correct opinion, or the strong opinion is, you can live anywhere in the world. Even if it's a land of kufr. It will be disliked, but not haram, if you're able to implement your religion. If you're not able to implement your religion, any woman can't wear hijab, you can't have masajid, etc. Or you truly fear for your religion or your family's religion. There's a good chance me or my family are going to fall into kufr. This person, hijrah is wajib upon him. It's an obligation. It's fard for that person to leave to a better place. A better place. Tayyib. Someone comes and says, Sheikh, where are you going to go in the world today? Don't say this question. Don't say, where are you going to go in the world today? Go and study and see. Go and study and see where is it practical for you to go. Some people, they went to Turkey, some people, they went to Dubai, some people went to Malaysia, some people went to Indonesia, some people went back to Lebanon, some people went to Pakistan. There's a billion places for you to go. The only issue is, and you need to be real with yourself, is that it's going to be somewhat hard. It's going to be somewhat hard. It's not going to be easy. And we need to be willing to accept that it's not going to be a walk in the park. Maybe Allah makes it easy, Allahu Alam. Maybe Allah makes it easy and everything is very easy for you. Alhamdulillah, beautiful, excellent. But that's why most people don't want to go, because they don't want to be inconvenienced. Normal, they were born here, they were raised here, they're used to everything, they know where everything is, their family's here. Obviously you have a connection and you prefer to live here. No issue. No issue. But for you to go overseas, is it better? Of course it's better. Of course it's better. Someone to say that living overseas in a Muslim country, it's like living in Australia, abadan. The simple fact that you hear adhan, for example, you hear adhan, the masajid are everywhere that you go, everything is halal, the Jum'ah is off, the Eid is off, your children, they go to school and there's Islamic studies. In the university, there's Islamic subjects. In every subject that they teach, there's an element of Islam. How can you say there isn't a benefit in that? How can you say that? Here in Australia, look at the reality. Because people always try and say, there's bad wherever you go. Of course there's bad wherever you go. Sah. Go to Lebanon, there's bad. True. Number one, how many girls do you know in Lebanon are getting pregnant outside of marriage? How many girls do you know are committing zina outside of marriage? How many girls do you know are wearing short dresses and skirts, going out in front of their family members, not behind their back, in front of their family members, and no one can say anything about it? How many girls do you know are going clubbing? How many girls do you know are taking drugs? I'm just on the girls, forget the boys now. Just on the girls. How many girls do you know in Lebanon run away from home because they got a boyfriend that played with their mind? How many girls do you know? You'll be lucky to say one. You'll be extremely fortunate to say two out of the billions that you know. Come to Australia or countries in the West in general, and how many girls do you know? Wallah, I'll write a big list. I'll write a big list for you. The growing up is different. The mindset is different. The rules are different. Correct. In Lebanon, believe me, if a person wants to be on drugs, he can find drugs. If a person wants to go to clubs, he can go to clubs. If a person wants to fornicate, he can fornicate. But what's the likelihood there between the likelihood here? Here, you struggle to find one virgin, not from the girls, from the guys. You struggle to find one virgin before marriage. And tabarakallah, when you meet a virgin, and it's like Mary, alayhi salam. Allahu Akbar. Have you committed zina before marriage? Allah, what a man. Over there, even he's a bad boy, but fornication before marriage is not common. كيف كانت قبل الزواج؟ الحمد لله.
أصبر.
أنا خايف من ما دوري خلينا من بلاد. The level of haram is different. The normality of the haram is different. And if someone does haram, it's looked down upon. And it's not like, wallah, here someone goes and gets a tattoo, ma tabarakallah. Someone gets, Allah yahdik, man. What are you doing? He has to hide it from his dad, etc. He'll put it in his dad's face. What are you going to do about it? I got to tell him. Want to kick me out of the house? No problem. Then the matters of values, morals, respect, etc. Over there, when they come to Australia and they see or hear of some of the things that happen, they lose their minds. How is this even possible? How can a son talk to his dad like that? How can a girl talk to her dad like that? Look, they can't fathom it. Over there, even if they're not religious, but there's rules, there's principles. And not just Lebanon, most of the Muslim countries are like this. Jaid, as we mentioned, on top of, which is the most important thing, your deen being easy for you to implement. If you want to be religious, very easy, alhamdulillah. Very easy to be religious if you want to be religious. And I haven't been all around the Muslim world, but if a person wanted to pray every prayer in Jama'ah, it's easy. In the masjid, it's easy. Not for everyone, of course, but generally speaking, if a person wanted to stop and pray at the masjid, everywhere you go, masjid, everywhere you go, adhan. And it's beautiful. So for someone to think that living overseas is no benefit, or they say, oh, haram is everywhere, if you are happy where you are, that you're okay, your kids are okay, no, you shouldn't. We're not saying it's haram for you to live in Australia. We're not saying it's haram. But don't belittle the concept of hijrah. And don't ever use the false excuse, oh, there's haram everywhere. Okay, it's haram everywhere, but the likelihood, as we mentioned. For a person who does this act, the Prophet ﷺ guarantees for him a house in the middle of paradise, on the outskirts of paradise, and in the middle of paradise, and in the high levels of paradise. Some of the ulama said that this is only from Mecca to Al-Madinah. Some of the ulama said this is open to the Day of Judgment. But in general, even if it wasn't guaranteed for everyone, the rewards for Hijrah are immense. And the rewards for Hijrah are upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah Azza wa Jalla is generous. هذا والله أعلم. صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله محمد وصحبه أجمعين.